Well, it's a Monday afternoon. It's quite cold. It's about 5 degrees centigrade, so it's not exactly toasty. And this was picked up. It's a Hyundai 196cc electric start. The battery there, I've got it on charge at the moment. Also self-propelled. According to the previous owners, they were finding it difficult to start, so that could mean anything really. But what I've noticed is if you pull the handle or press the starter, it'll go around a couple of times and then it'll go thunk. And you can pull it, you can do whatever you want, it will not turn the engine. So something's causing a mechanical lockup. So I did actually contact Hyundai support. I think this machine's actually 3 or maybe 4 years old. Apart from the sort of dried grass, it's in very decent shape. It's not at all rusty or anything. That's just dried on grass. So I don't think it's had a hell of a hard life. So I did a little bit of preemptive checking. I did take the cover off the cam here, or the valve cover, and I pushed the valves to make sure they were moving. I think the top one, I'm not sure if that's the inlet or the outlet, was slightly stiff, so I reseated it all, and then I've tried pulling it and it seems to be okay. So I don't know if these engines have a tendency for the valve to jam, but what I found as a workaround was, I haven't started this machine yet at all, it's never been started. I've got some fresh fuel there to test it out. But what I found was if you lifted it up and you turned the blade backwards, you could then start to try and do it again, but it would eventually just stop. So I don't know if it is related to a sticky valve. If anybody's got one of these Hyundai mowers, I'd be quite happy to hear. I've still got the trusty Honda HYM510SPE, I think it is, but this one's significantly newer. I think it's got a build date of 2021. Where does it say? I'm sure I saw it earlier. Maybe I need to get my eyes checked. But it's, I'm sure it says something about 2021 somewhere. But anyway, never mind. So what I'm going to do now, I have got it on charge. So the battery's charging. And I'm going to see if it whirls round. Now, before I do that, I have taken the spark plug cap off. I've not put any fresh fuel in it. And I'm just going to see if it does start to whirl round or not. Right, so that's me at the back of the machine. I'm going to hold the dead man's handle, push start buttons here. Right, so that does seem to be going round okay, and that's only since I pushed the upper valve in and out to make sure it was moving freely. It seemed to be kind of stuck. As I say, I don't know if these machines are liable to valve lock or whatever you would describe that as. But I'm going to put this back on. That's back on. And then I'm going to put a bit of fresh fuel in. I haven't checked the fuel, I've not checked the carb or anything. I'm just going to try that first and see how it goes. Right, so I put some fuel in there. You might not be able to see that, but it is it's maybe a couple of centimetres below the fill point, or the neck. So that seems okay. Spark plug cap's back on. One thing I need to do, I notice, is I need to reroute the pull starter back through there. So anyway, I'm going to give it a go. Right, so that's now doing what I mentioned before. It's locked. Won't do anything. Now, how I get round that is I basically lift the mower up, expose the blade. Now I'm going to take the spark plug cover off. So the spark plug cover's off. It's solid. Oops. And that's it loosened off again. Now, that's been a really good move. That's just popped all these handles out. Excellent. Didn't really need that to happen. But there you go. Right, that's the bonus content. So they're popped back in. They go in very easily. So that seems to be pulling the cable fine there. And that, which is for the drive, that appears to be pulling the cable fine there. So I'm going to put the spark plug cap back on. That's it attached, and I'm going to see what happens now. So it's hard to do this with a phone. So right, let's see. Bugger all. Excellent. I can smell petrol, but that's probably because when I tipped it over this way, I should probably tip it over the other way to undo the blade. Right, so what I need to do is I need to get something to hold this back so I can pull it and see if it starts. Right, I've just used a bit of that plant tape. It's like a sort of Velcro idea. Let's see how we get on. Right, so there we go. It's locked up again. Right, so now that it's locked up, I'm going to take this cover off and see what the situation is with the valves, because it might not be the valves, but there does seem to be some stiffness. Okay, so take the valve cover off. You've got 4 10mm bolts. There is a gasket behind this. I may actually see about draining the old fuel out just to make sure everything's clear. But I'll check the valves first to see what's happening. Right, so that's the valve cover off. I'm going to do the lower one first. That moves quite easily. There's a lot more pressure on that. That's very easy to push. And that's a hell of a lot more tension, but that could be something to do with the position of the piston, possibly. But when I first removed this seemed to be not moving at all. So I'm going to see if that allows me to pull start it without having done anything to the blade. Right, so that hasn't freed off the blade. So let's see. I'll try and find a way to get this over an angle without falling over. Right, so better take that spark plug cap off. Not that I'm expecting to start anyway, but safety first. So that's solid. Now I've just put my foot on it. It's going back the way, something's, I don't know if it's something to do with the starter gear or something's solid there anyway. Rewind it. Something related to that, I believe, if you see that gear. Back the way is fine. Something's stopping it there. Right, I'm going to try pushing this valve at the same time as I'm turning that blade, but I can't do that with the camera. Right, so I'm going to put the valve cover back on. I'm going to take this top cover off. There's three, is it three or there's two? Two Allen screws there. Should take that up, and then I think there's going to be a series of 10mm nuts to take this part off, which I guess is a cover for the tank or something. Well, that's that top cover off. It just it's held on by the two Phillips screws there, and then it gets put into the bottom here. There's a couple of wee sort of nibs that hold it in place. So basically you'll bring it out like that. That's that. Next thing is to take these 10mm nuts off to get the pull starter mechanism off. So that's the recoil starter removed. Looks like you've got to undo the fuel tank cap. Pull that out. I'll need to look around the other side and check. Is there anything in here that... Right, so that's that. Right, okay. So that's that off. Now, something is catching. Right, so that's right. So that kind of stopped there slightly. Right, you see how that's now? What would that be knocking against? So this is what happens. So I've taken all the shroud off, and this is why the guy described it as difficult to start. So that's obviously the other way would be unlocking it. So that's solid. So what's making it solid? Is it something to do with the crank? Is it something to do with the piston? Not entirely sure. Maybe I should take the plug out and then just make sure that the piston is in fact going up and down. But turn that back, then it's free again. Right, I'll need to do some investigating. It feels like it might rain here though, that's a bit of a bummer. Well, it's not looking good. I don't know if you can actually see that in there. But the top of the piston's there. But it's not going down on its own accord. So I'll stop this, I'll get a longer screwdriver. Yeah, so piston head's there. That's me pushing it back freely. And then I can see it come back up, so that's it come back. So it's actually something to do, I guess, with the crank. So I will look at taking this engine, or the cylinder head off, barrel off, and see what exactly goes on inside. But either the crank or something, or the conrod, appears to have snapped, or maybe the gudgeon pins come out. Not entirely sure, but that piston is not going up and down. So a gently used Hyundai 196cc lawnmower. It doesn't really say much for the reliability, but I think it is just a Chinese engine, so it might be that I can get a barrel and a head for next to nothing and rebuild it. But I'll need to have a look on AliExpress, so I'll just finish this just now. I'll take some other film, but I'll just post this to see if anybody has any ideas, or if anybody's had this problem before, where the piston appears to have become disconnected from the crank. But it moves if you push it, so it's not like it's seized itself in or broken up, or doesn't appear to be that way so far. So anyway, answers on a postcard if you have any input. Well, guess who's back? Can't help myself. So, I've taken the valve cover off again. I'm going to try undoing these two bolts and the two in here, one there and one down the bottom, and see if I can just pull the head off. But I'm going to have to take a couple of odds and ends off to get that out. I'll need to undo the coil. What else? So that's there, the exhaust's attached, the carb's attached. Need to jump up here and have a look. Hopefully, hopefully I can just take it off there, pull it up and see what's going on first. It might be a complete and utter waste of time, but something's not right between the crank and the conrod. So unless the bolts have come off at the bottom of the conrod at the crank, but if I push the thing down manually, the piston down manually, it will rise back up, which is a bit strange. But anyway, I'll undo these bolts. I'll maybe just disconnect the carb and that to give myself a bit more room though. Well, that's the head and the push rods removed. So that's locked. That's locked. It's coming up. So it's not gone anywhere. I reckon if I could lever that out, that piston would just come out, I think. Well, there you go. My guess was correct. So, the bottom end of the conrod has become disconnected. So, nice metal shard from the crank, or the conrod. Another one. So, considering this lawnmower has had such light use, I think that's pretty bloody awful, really. So that's why, if your Hyundai 196cc lawnmower is not working, well, it could well be due to the fact you're missing your bottom end of the conrod. So God knows what it's been doing inside here, but no doubt it'll be somewhere down there. So, so the piston looks like that. I don't know if that's a bit that's come off that or not. It's hard to tell. It does have a shape there, but I don't think that's quite the same shape. So the piston skirt has been, I guess, chewed up. I don't know what that white stuff is, maybe just condensation from sitting. The bore feels quite smooth. Yeah, it's a bit of a bugger that, but anyway, I don't know if it's worth rebuilding. But yeah, that's why it's not starting. So I shall have a look and see on AliExpress what it costs for an engine for one of these, or the bare engine anyway. I don't suppose it'll be that expensive, but yeah, not exactly a resounding thumbs up for Chinese mowers badged as Hyundai, is it? That Honda lawnmower I was working on last summer, I mean, it's a 1995, so it's 30 years old and it still runs fine, whereas this is not even 5 years old and it's absolutely goosed.